Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's me, the one bun, Asher, the Kingdom Hall Crasher, and I'm joined today by Rick, the one and only. Well, not the one and only Rick, but the one and only Rick of this kind.
Thank your lucky stars, that is so.
Right. So today we were going to have a discussion about a question that popped up in a live stream a couple of days ago. And the question was an excellent one, actually. How do we discuss the organization with our family members? Because that couldn't be a very sensitive kind of thing. Like you don't want to scare them off. You also don't want to like upset them at you, or yeah, you don't want to get them upset at you and start shunning you or whatever. Like there's all kinds of stuff that could happen when you talk to family about this stuff. So without further ado, Rick, you have the floor.
Thank you. Okay. Um, okay, so where to start? Well, let's start with a bit of where people are at in the idea of them being a balanced individual when we're talking to cult members. We have an advantage. We know that mindset. We can hopefully go back into the mindset of being a Jehovah's Witness. I certainly have moments that I can go back to for mental reference. But I was always on the edge anyway. So, then you have to go the extra step and go, what if someone is a true blue JW all the way through? And so you have to go the extra mile. But trying to get yourself into that mindset. And so they've got all these barriers up. And, there are times when you might want to confront those barriers, times I've done myself. But there are also times when you want to get in under the radar, as it were. And the way you do that is, for me, using Socratic irony. So you just pretend you're a dumbass. I don't understand this stuff. I looked at this and I looked at that, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Can you please explain it to me? I'm very silly. Can you explain how these two connect? I just don't get it. That's quite a good option, because then you're playing the dumb idiot, and they go, "Oh, I can help this idiot out. And I can count my time, and I can, I'm being a good little JW." So that's quite a good tip. In general, it's quite a good tip, actually. Okay. So again, following this Socratic irony idea, you can set up a logical argument, which you don't have to conclude it. Okay, so you start them down a path of logical thinking, and so I'm going to show you an example of this later. But okay, so you start off with, okay, here's something simple. We both agree on this, don't we? Yeah, okay, we've got this in common. Good. There's a nice little bond start straight away. We both agree on this premise, and you follow that on, not to its full logical conclusion, but you start them on the road. As the further you go on making those connections for them, the further into apostasy you step.
Yep, you got to be careful
So,
with that.
does that make sense? I
Well,
hope so. Anyone in the live chat? I should look at the live chat, shouldn't
right.
I?
Yeah, yeah.
That would
There,
be useful, wouldn't it?
we do
Okay.
have some people in the live chat. We have,
Okie doke.
our usuals, including Captain Apostate and Black Sheep.
Hey, guys. The usual motley crew aboard the good ship One Bun.
Oh, goodness.
Hey, I dressed for the occasion. Come on. At least I gave you that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
Oh, what's going on here? Oh dear.
you even freshened yourself up.
I did. I put my head in the bowel.
That's hilarious.
Right, okay. Lengths I go to. Right, okay. Here we go. Oh, I can see me. That's weird. Okay. Hello, it's me on a little screen and a big screen. This is good. I'm so 21st century. Okay, going back to my point. You don't have to absolutely conclude a logical argument. You can just leave them on the trail towards it. So here's an example to start at the top of my head. The Bible says you should love your enemies and pray for those persecuting you. So you could say to them, "Oh, I'm just, I wasn't raised religious. I've just looked at the Bible. This is like the opening bit of Jesus ministry, and it says this. What does that mean? Boom. You got them thinking about what does it mean to love your enemies and to pray for those persecuting you. Now, if you were going to follow that to its conclusion, you'd say, okay, then, so who are your enemies? And I'd have to say, well, it's those filthy apostates, isn't it? Do you pray for them? No, they're like they're dead people. And then they've immediately got a bit of cognitive dissonance between what Jesus is saying in his Sermon on the Mount and what they're doing. And it's immediately that they've got to deal with that then. So that would be the logical conclusion. You take it to that conclusion. Who are your enemies? Do you pray for them? Or you can just share that scripture. What does that mean? You're pointing them towards that there's a difference between what Jesus is saying in the Sermon on the Mount and their teachings, their beliefs, their culture. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about.
Right. You basically you drop them a little you drop them a little ladder, right? So that they can maybe climb up a few rungs for themselves if they like. Maybe have a peek at what's going on.
Oh, Adrian lost. He lost his case.
Now, I'm not entirely sure that I've heard that from Adrian himself yet, but if that's true, that's awful. Anyway,
we shall keep you posted, folks.
Yeah, we'll definitely find out for sure. I hope not. That would be terrible. Rick?
Oh dear. It's all going weird. Stop it. Sorry, carry on. I'm paying attention now. I'm just going to leave the phone alone for the moment.
Right. So, what would you recommend, Rick, if you have like family members like my grandma who are just like totally not going to listen?
I would suggest getting the most grotesque sign you possibly can and just packing it into the public pavement outside and getting on with your life. Seriously, some people you will never ever be able to reach. They are so deeply entwined and interdependent that you probably won't ever get them out. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. There's a certain percentile of people who are like that. They will never admit they're wrong. They will never be able to see that what they're doing is damaging to them. They just can't see it.
Right. So what we're trying to say in a nice, gentle way is that, so
it's your grandma. It would be
at some point, there are certain people that just may be unreachable. And I know that's kind of hard to accept, especially when it comes to your family, but that's the truth of it.
Yeah, some things you just can't have. It's a truism of life, isn't it? We'd all like lots of different things. Sometimes we just can't have them. And part of being an adult, part of being part of a bigger world is to say, okay, I can't have this or I can't have that, but I can have these other things, and I'm going to make the best of those things. And that's a much more balanced approach. We're dealing with people here who have this extreme personality where they're very important and it's undeserved kindness. So they can't really see that kind of thing. It's all or nothing. It's all, they've put so much into this cult, so many decades perhaps, that to admit they're wrong is just psychologically so huge that they can't face it. They'd rather just keep. It's easier to get rid of someone and shun someone than actually face something. Again, it's another truism of life. It's much easier to make excuses for ourselves and not look at ourselves and look what we're doing. It's everyone else's fault. Classic excuses that we come up with, not to actually examine ourselves and see whether we're living as healthily as we can. And the cult doesn't ever encourage that. But if we're going after people who aren't like your grandma, who may well be able to reach, I would suggest that just planting those little seeds, especially if it's family members, because if you start going anywhere down that line of logic for them, they're going to see that as attacking them.
Right.
But just set up that cognitive dissonance. It's a classic verse. I actually used that in one of our phone calls we did to some elder, and it was a very interesting response to that. But yeah, just ask them something like that. It's very simple. It's there in the Sermon on the Mount. It's Jesus laying out his stall of what Christianity is. He says, you should do this. Are you doing it? Do you do that? And it's patience as well. I mean, you and I have both engaged in what they term regressive or aggressive activism. I disagree with those terms. I think they are just it's just another form. But as with any battle, there are different ways that you can engage in this battle, and one of them, especially if it's a family member or a close friend, is you do the slow war. You take it very gently. You just lead them gently towards a conclusion. Maybe they'll wander off on a tangent, who knows?
Right.
But you've pointed them towards a healthier way of looking at things. That's what I would do.
Right.
We all have different circumstances. We all know what our friends and family are going to be like. So each one will be individual. But these are broad brushstrokes. Try being a bit. I'm stupid. I don't understand this. Why does it say this here and then it's here? I don't get it.
Now, something else that's important is that you need to gather your evidence too. Like, proof is so important when you're trying to deal with this. Like, I now keep in mind, you are not trying to attack your family. That's not what this is. But you do want to have evidence at the ready.
Yeah, because they will demand it of you.
Yep.
And even the act of looking at the evidence is another step.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go in and try and, get these people to exit themselves from this, just looking at your material will be a massive crossing the Rubicon moment for them. So that's why people like the King of Faders are really good, because his channel is just based on their own literature. It's nothing, and it's all current stuff as well. It's not like he goes back to 1906 and goes, "Oh, look, so and so said something," and the answer to that is, "Oh, well, that was in 1906, wasn't it? We've had new light since then." To reach the point where 1906 is significant is another step in the journey of getting out, if you know what I mean. Because they've been told, "Oh, it's just old light, don't worry about it." But to actually realise that there are consequences, there's a history, there's an evolution of this religion from this point to that point, takes a way of thinking that they don't have right now.
Right. And so as far as evidence goes, now the type of evidence does matter. If you're thinking that you're going to wake your family up by showing them a news report of child abuse, that may work for some family members, maybe, but most of them won't even look at it, in the first place. They will not watch that because they'll believe that it's, Satan's media or apostate stuff, whatever. So this is why it's important to try to use what they rely on as their evidence. Basically, show them in the Bible, show them in their own literature, show them in their own organization's recent history, even if you can. And I'm saying recent history only because the farther you go back, the more dismissive they tend to be about it. They're like, "Oh, well, that's just old light. We don't do that anymore." And that was just in the beginning. That was weird stuff. We don't do that now. We've learned more about this. The light's gotten brighter.
Yeah, light's gotten brighter. But I think the most significant thing someone can do, because there are different ways of thinking about this. I mean, you could go and look at combating cult mind control, for example, which I had a quick look at today, and their strategic approach to this. That certainly can work. It's up to each individual to decide what they would like to do with this. But one very powerful way of getting through to people is just be, first of all, accepting of their choice. And second of all, just showing them unconditional love as much as you can. And you don't march around with a bunch of flowers every day, demanding to show them all this unconditional love that you've got for them. But, just every opportunity you have to make a connection with that person, you take it.
And now I know that
build that up gently over time.
I know that some of you may have recoiled when you heard Rick say accept their choice. Because I know that to some of you, you're thinking, what? Accept the fact that they're, enmeshed in this child abuse protecting organization, this, these people that kill people or allow them to die, needlessly, and things like that, or even um, push them towards suicide, things like that, with their shunning. Like this is what I'm supposed to be accepting of? Well, I mean, I gotta say personally, I am not accepting of it. I'm not accepting of my grandmother's choice. That's why I'm doing what I do, and about that's why I'm open about the fact that I am, and in fact, against the organization. It's because I do not um, agree with what she's doing, and I am not accepting of it, and therefore, I don't think I could do that. Now, you don't have to be rude about it or anything if you don't accept their beliefs. That's what I'm talking about. It's like you don't have to you don't have to be like in their face about stuff, and you don't have to always share how much you hate everything about the organization. No, but you could just not silently protest, but you know what I mean. Like, just don't be approving of it. Basically,
yeah.
It's kind of like how, not to take a page from their book. You know how they're like, they pretend like they don't hate what you're doing until, of course, you're studying with them. But like they pretend to like just be accepting of everything and stuff. And
so that would be fake.
Yeah, that would be fake, but like I don't pretend. That's why I don't even do that. I'm just straight up like I don't accept this, and I'm not accepting is what I mean of it. But I can't control you, and I realize that. So there's that.
Absolutely, you're right.
And I wouldn't want to have control over.
Because there's different ways of thinking about this. There isn't one way to do it, and that's it.
Right.
Now, what I mean by being accepting their choices, this is perception. And first point I'd like to make, well, before I forget, is there is a point where one's personal dignity about being absolutely truthful and ethically truthful with people has to bump up against another person's frailties and the reality of life, that we've all got egos that can be bruised. And there is a meeting point of those two moments, different for each individual. But if you go in always guns blazing, you're immediately going to raise those barriers. And that was the argument against activism like we've done. Oh, immediately put their barriers up, bum, 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 bum. Yes, that does happen, but there's lots of ways of doing this. Some people will benefit from that, some people won't, and later on they might come out. There is no one ethical way of dealing with someone who's in a cult or in a high control situation. There isn't one way of doing it that works for absolutely everybody. I wish there were. I wish we could just find out the one perfect way of getting people out of the Watchtower Society in every other high control situation, publish it, off we go and drink some cocktails, be fantastic. That isn't the case. So yes, you and I have engaged in aggressive activism. I'm proud of what I did. That is one form of activism that will work for some people. We also can choose to engage in activism that is a lot more long term, that is much more slow paced. So you give little pieces of information, little breadcrumbs out. All these things are tactics that can work in different situations. We're not saying you've got to go and do this or you've got to go and do that, or one contradicts the other, because they're both different ways of doing things. One big problem of coming out of the cult, you've come out of black and white, yes or no, on or off. There's one way of doing things, and we know what it is. Luckily, we've got it. Well, that's not how the world works. There are many ways of living. There are many ways of approaching this situation. And yes, some will contradict each other. Doesn't make one or the other wrong. It just means there's different ways of doing things. There's a plurality to life. There is one way of doing things. So yes, I agree with you.
And of
You
course,
don't
they
have
can
to
ask.
accept their choice,
Right,
or you can choose to accept their choice,
right,
and long term show them that that choice is wrong. Both are equally
right,
correct.
right. And you don't have to. The reason we don't have one way of doing activism is because there are so many different types of people.
Yeah,
Like I know we probably all want to think that all Jehovah's Witnesses are the same because they probably like to think of themselves as all being the same.
and my God, they've made a lot of time and effort to try and make everyone the same,
They
and yet
sure try.
they are still different, aren't they?
Quite, quite. They're a big old box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Thanks, Forrest.
Yeah, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. It's true. You never know what you're gonna get. Like even if you think you know just by looking at the outside of the chocolate, whew, you could be surprised. You could be
Yes,
surprised.
you can.
You could bite into a big old walnut and be like, ah, my tooth. Oh boy. But anyway,
But
I
this is the point that you and I and others have been trying to make for a very, very long time, is there is a plurality to life. There are many different solutions to life. Look at nature. Is there one form of life? Well, there was millions and millions of years ago. There was one form of life. There were these bacterial mats that you can still find in Australia, and that was it. But life, guess what? It evolved, and there's now different ways of living and surviving. And that means life itself and also how we live our lives. There are different ways of living our lives. They're not mutually exclusive. People can have difference of opinion and different ways of living and still be good people. That's possible and actually happens every day. Despite everyone trying to tell us, you must live like this. There's good people everywhere. They may live very different lives to me. They may live lives that I personally wouldn't want to live. Doesn't make them a bad person.
mm-mm. Right. So yeah, like so many different people, so many different methods. And that's actually one of the wonderful things about being out of the cult is that you have the freedom to make your own choices about what you want to do. You can be calm and be a nice pleasant person and talk to the carts, or you can choose to take a more, aggressive approach and, ask them some tough questions, you know? I don't recommend like going and chasing after them and swearing at them or anything like that. I've actually gotten a little too aggressive before and revisited a cart after I'd already shut it down, and I do a little bit regret it only because I felt that I just sort of may have gotten a little bit. My emotions had gotten out of control. Basically, is what I mean.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I was.
that's because I was quite worked up. And as Rick knows, I was even physically ill afterwards. So, I mean, it was quite a bit. I was just so incensed because I wasn't prepared for the amount of lies that I was about to hear. And I should have been, but like I wasn't because my first cart crash was with a Spanish speaking couple who claimed not to speak English. And I didn't really get much out of them. So I didn't really, and I should have known though. I've seen billions of Zeb cart crashes and Stacy's crashes, and I know how they are. I know, I know that they like to lie. um. Anyway, so yeah, I did. I let my emotions get the better of me, and I regret it, and I will never be doing that again. Not like that. I will, um, at least to the best of my ability, attempt to keep a calm and cool head when I am doing my activism, because I think that it's important for my message, particularly. But like I said, we all have freedom to do, what we wish, and how we want to do this is up to us.
Yeah,
We're just here to kind of give you suggestions and give you little random ideas, maybe just brainstorming here.
yeah. This has never been a channel that says thou shalt do something in the way we tell you to do. You've always been, you know, encouraging people to find what's comfortable to them. I certainly have always had that message, and we've never had any inkling of there is one way of doing this. All we're doing here tonight is answering a very, very interesting and pertinent question, isn't it, Asha? You know,
Absolutely.
how do you talk to someone who's inside the cult? And there are many ways of doing it. Now, would you like me to show you my example now? Could you go on to Dwarg? So you have the technical ability to go on to Dwarg and share with the group.
Let me give it a shot here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do a few magic tricks while you're sorting out the technical side, Ash.
And what book did you want me to crack open for you, just out of curiosity?
I think it's called Jesus, Life and Ministry, I think it's called. But it's the book they have for their midweek meeting. And it's like they take the Gospels and they divide it up and have pictures and everything. It's quite a big book. It's like the Revelation book sized. There you go. It's like this sort of size book.
Right.
Yeah, classic. First edition, this is, mate.
Publications, books and brochures. Let's see what
There's
we
so
got.
many of them.
Yes, there are.
This book figures me. It's horrible.
You can't even find all of them on here. Not anymore. And I'm sure they love having them in digital format so that they can edit them whenever they please. I'm not finding this book.
Oh, what's it? I don't know what it's called. It went away. Just look for books titled something with Jesus following something off. Just look for Jesus and in the books.
There's Jesus, the way.
Look for Jesus in the books, and you'll find it.
I'm trying to read one to you. There's Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life. Yeah, that's the only one.
That's probably it. Go and check out that one, mate.
All right, I'll have a peek. Let's see.
Sorry, I shouldn't have made a note of the book title, shouldn't I? Duh.
Would have.
It would have helped. Well, if the thing is, if we'd have done the stream the other day, I would have had the book. So that's why I didn't bother.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah. So let's see here.
There was sort of logic in my notes.
Well, let me see here. Well, this book is all about Jesus. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be looking for to help you determine that this is actually it. So you need to...
Okay. Does it have like the cover should be a painting?
Aren't all of their covers paintings?
The beardy Jesus. And if it should be broken up into bits, like chapters, and it's the ministry of Jesus.
That could be like any book. Any of their books, dude.
Well, how many other books start with Jesus? Have you actually looked at an image of the book to see if it has got a beardy Jesus on the cover?
No, it does. It does. It's literally a painting.
Well, that's a good start. We're narrowing it down.
And then it's talking about Jesus' ministry.
Yeah, well, that's probably it. So
all right.
Click on that.
There's like two different sections of Jesus' ministry.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. There's section 1, leading up to Jesus' ministry. Section 2, the beginning of Jesus' ministry. Section 3, Jesus' great ministry in Galilee. Yeah. So,
oh my God.
If you're going to be like a little more specific, that would be super helpful.
Okay, live chat. Does anyone know which book it's part of the midweek meeting? Okay. And they study this book in the midweek meeting. It's a big A4, we're on the bigger sized books.
Would you happen to know
about Jesus?
The chapter or anything that you're trying to look in?
Just doing work. Okay, thanks, Nicholas. No, it's not the Greatest Man book. It's newer than that, Captain Apostate.
Yeah, I remember the Greatest Man book.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. It's a horrible maroon thing, wasn't it? Ugh. Beardy Jesus.
Maroon.
Yeah. So anyway, if we can find this book, it's part of the midweek meeting. I'm sure someone out there must know which book it's called. I think it might be Jesus' Life Ministry.
Sorry about that. Next time we have a stream where we include any of their literature, we will absolutely have the literature lined up.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
We'll
No,
actually
it's not the aid book. No, it's not that. The horrible green thing. No.
Ugh. Having flashbacks.
Yeah. Let's just just list every book that it's a shudder each time the next title comes up. Yes, but anyway, when you find the book, at the back of the book it gives a list of Jesus' parables or illustrations, and they use the word illustrations. Okay, so I've just made a little thing here for you guys. I love my charts, Ash. So we've got chapter 43. It says Jesus uses illustrations. In the back of the book, we've got illustrations, we've got allegory, and we've got parable. And then we've got list of parables at the back of the book, which is what I've just told you about. Okay, so let's discuss what these three words mean. This is a piece of activism, and it's just based on a dictionary. A dictionary is not an apostate piece of literature. Not yet. It will be. It will be. But not quite yet. Okay, so you can look up in your dictionary. So I looked up the word parable. It said, a narrative of imagined events used to illustrate a moral or spiritual lesson, or it could be an allegory. So if you look up allegory, it's a narrative or description in which things have a figurative or symbolical meaning. Okay, so slightly different, aren't they? And then if you look up the word illustration, the explanation that fits here is an explanatory example. So nothing about prophecy, explanatory example and illustration. A parable is imagined events. They're not real. These aren't real people. This is a story to illustrate a point. And the Watchtower admit this in chapter 43, that Jesus is using illustrations to teach his point. Now, they don't call them the 144,000, sorry, the faithful and discreet slave is listed in those parables. Okay, so they're a narrative of imagined events. They're an explanatory example. They're not a prophecy. If it was, they'd have to call it an allegory. You're just using the dictionary to make people think. Why don't they call it an allegory? They don't. They call it an illustration. They call it a parable. That's not a prophecy. This doesn't have a greater meaning. It's just a throwaway illustration of Jesus. There you go. It would have helped if I had the book.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Well, maybe later on we can find it, Ash, and you can just post a link to the.
Right. Yeah, I will. I will definitely continue to look for that because I want to see it. I want to know what the heck the book is. It's been so long since I've been to a midweek meeting, though.
Yes, lucky you.
I wouldn't.
That's something to be happy about, isn't it, Ash? Neither of us have to go to bloody meetings anymore unless we want to go and talk to people, and it's our choice to do that. We're not obliged to go 2 or 3 times a week to some god-awful Kingdom Hall. Anyone? Bueller? Just sitting there.
Bueller.
Yeah, Bueller. Chewing gum. Really bored. Oh, when's this meeting over, man? Damn.
Save Ferris.
I love that film.
All right. So yeah, my goodness. Yeah, sometimes their books don't work. Responding to Nicholas in the chat. Sometimes the books just aren't enough. You can lead.
No, it's not the truth that leads to eternal life. It's a more modern book than that. It's a book the size of the Revelation book. I tell you,
as I was saying to Nicholas in the middle of my reply to him.
Sorry.
Can lead a horse to water, like they always say. Of course, you can't force them to actually drink it and then be nourished by it. It's not going to help. They have to do it themselves. They have to want to. Hey, it's Derek O'Hare. Hey, buddy. What's going on?
Hey, Derek.
Stay
I
awesome.
don't know if you heard, mate, but I'll show you now. You're here. I'll show you what I've got for you. Because I keep meaning to send this to you. I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi. I meant to give this to you. Your father wanted you to have this when you were older. Where is it? Damn it. Keep talking. I'll find it. Oh, mate, where's it gone? Aha, here it is. Yeah, Derek. I got you your own little Lego homage set. I do this for people that I like. So every so often I make a little Lego person, like a character for them, if I like somebody. So this is for you, mate. So what you can do is if you can private message me on my YouTube channel, Excelsior, and I will give me your address and I will be sending this to you.
Hey, fabulous
It comes with a megaphone.
Fabulous prizes.
It's even got your denim shirt. Come on, man. What's not to like? So yeah, just message me and that will be sent to you. Because I think you're a top bloke and I really admire and respect what you've done. So thank you, mate, for what you did.
May I ask a personal question? If you make the little Lego people for people that you like, what do you do for the people you don't like? You make them voodoo dolls or what?
Well, I have an extensive prison in my town, so I make as big a likeness as I can, and I imprison them and have them working in my slave labor camp. So,
oh, is that the other part of the Lego town that we don't see?
Yeah, you know, like Plato said, you can't have a really good society without some slaves. So, someone's got to do the work. I'm kidding. I just don't give them anything, Ash, because I don't waste time on people I don't like. Right. There's lots of people I do like, and there's also a big, wonderful, beautiful world out there to go and explore and see.
Oh, Rick.
And experience. So
Derek says love back to you, Rick.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, just private message me your address, Derek, to on my YouTube channel. You can do a comment or something, or it's excelsior71s@gmail.com. So yeah, you can just sort of email me and I'll send that on to you because I think you'll like it. I hope you do. Yeah, but going back to why we're here.
Voodoo is wicked, yeah.
Trying to get trying to get back to the point here. Mrs. Morris. There are many ways of approaching this very, very difficult, thorny issue. You love this person. You want them to come out of this very destructive organization as you have, or you are doing so. And it is heart-wrenching. And to varying degrees, we all have different experiences here, but all of us experience the pain of seeing someone who isn't quite there for you. There's something missing. They're not the whole genuine person when you're interacting with it. There's always part of them that's removed. And that's very, very heartbreaking. It's horrible. And so this is something that's going to be very difficult to do. And, maybe you'll be lucky and you can go in and give them loads of information. They go, oh, this is obvious. Why didn't I see this before? And off they go. But that's very unlikely. As I say, do that Socratic irony. Pretend to be stupid. So I don't understand this. Can you explain this? Point them in logical directions, but don't finish that logical conclusion. Let them go there. So there are ways that grammar can work, for example. Because whenever you make a statement, the opposite is also true, isn't it? Mm. So in that sense, grammatically, the way we think in words can actually be effective. When they start qualifying statements, for example, we're the true Christians, well, that obviously implies that there are false Christians, yes? Mm-hmm. So when these things can be helpful, that's how we think. We should understand that when a statement is made, the opposite is also true. So that can then be used when they start talking about apostates. Because one thing you'll spot about an abuser a mile away is that they deflect. So they'll tell you, oh, look at these horrible, abusive people over here. They do this, 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 and this.
Yep.
Never applying it to themselves, of course.
Isn't that always the way? They're always like, why do you mess with us so much? Why not the Catholic Church, eh?
Yeah, they're evil. They're priests that just go around. That's their whole life is abusing children. Now, it is a horrible thing that's happening in the Catholic Church, and I don't wish to minimize it,
But
obviously, but
you know about Jehovah's Witnesses.
that's deflection, isn't it?
And the Catholic Church has its own people to look after
Yeah,
that. There
absolutely.
are plenty
And I wish them all the greatest success.
Right. There are plenty of apostates at the Catholic Church, and I'm sure that they all,
Yeah, they're called Protestants.
Right. Right. Anyway, so yeah.
Damn you, Protestants, go.
No, don't now. Anyway.
Sorry.
Let's be nice here.
I'm wearing black like a priest here.
Right. So anyway, yeah, like there's plenty of people in all these organizations, I'm sure, that are just like us and that do, notice that these things are issues and they try to take action. So, there are apostates like us in other religions. That's why we don't do this. We know this one. We know this cult. That's why we work on this one and focus on this one.
And at some point, we may well want to step out and meet up and unite with some of these other groups for a wider objective. I mean, that's always a nice thing to see as a goal, and that certainly has happened. Look at Mormon Leaks becoming the news site and sharing all those information about those terrible abuses going on. That was an amazing piece of work, and that was because people reached out to the ex-Mormon community, and something really good came from that. I think it's called Faith Leaks now. That's the name, and you can go and check that out. So there's an example of, yes, we all have our specialisms, but what we'll find with any high control group is that there will be the bite method, won't there? There'll be those similarities of the control, whether it be an abused partner in an abusive relationship or someone who's in a cult. There are similarities between the ways people get controlled. So yes, that's something that I think is really worthwhile. Perhaps once you've done quite a bit of activism in the JWs, you might want to move on and use your expertise to link up with other people. That's something positive that can be done.
Well, if anybody happens to have any further questions on, specific situations that maybe we haven't really touched on at all, or just something that you wanted to ask about the topic, unwitnessing to family, please go ahead and make your comments now in the live chat, and we will try to address them before we pop off here. And also, even if you arrive later when this is no longer live, you're welcome to leave comments on the video itself, and we will try to get back to you on those if possible. I know I will. I can't guarantee Rick, because Rick won't see the notifications, but I will. But if you do have a specific question addressed to Rick, I will be happy to forward that to him.
Yes, by telegram, of course.
Yes.
In the usual way.
By horse. By Pony Express.
Pony Express, all the way from Texas. Yeah.
Yeehaw. Yeah, I don't believe I see any questions here.
No, and hopefully someone in the chat might be able to find that book. But I'll certainly put the title in a comment under the video, and I'll put the information down there so you can have it. So, but I think it would be worthwhile. It's the damn dictionary. How can a dictionary be an apostate piece of literature? It is just using reason. Words mean things. That's why we have different words. So why didn't they use that one? Just let them think about it.
Right.
Because
by the way, because he's off to go do some research, and he's looking forward to the weekend. Didn't mean to interrupt, but
okay. Thanks, Derek.
Sorry. Anyway, back to you. Sorry, I'm terrible.
Right. Yes. No one's got the book for me. Never mind.
Oh, well, that's all right. And Rick's channel is Excelsior Excelsior. Somebody was asking.
Yes. Yeah, it's all the budget got spent on my legal team, so I don't expect anything fantastic on there. It's all murmuring against Jehovah using my extensive Lego collection, and also I do some videos where I just talk about things, and sometimes I do make some sense. So you might want to listen. If you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, bit of comedy. Sometimes you need to whistle past the graveyard and have a good old laugh. And I certainly find humour to be very effective in helping me cope with my problems. So, yeah, maybe you'll have a... I do guarantee moderate amusement. That is actually guaranteed on my channel. So if you're after some moderate amusement, you know where to go.
Oh, my. Well, alrighty, everybody. I think that about wraps up today's stream. Like I said, if you had anything further that you wanted to ask that you did not get to have addressed this time, please go ahead and leave comments on the video, and I will try to address those in an orderly and timely fashion. Rick, did you have any closing words?
Yes, just to emphasize that we're looking at real life, life itself having a plurality of form. There are viruses, there are bacteria, there are antelope, there are human beings. There's lots of different ways of living and staying alive in the physical world. And that's the same in our culture and in our society. There are many different ways of living, many different ways of engaging in activism. All of them are equally good. Even if they may seem to contradict each other, they are right in their own way, because that's how the world actually is. So as always, I completely concur with you, Ash. I would just encourage people to do something from the heart, keep it legal, but do something. You don't have to go into a kingdom hall. You don't have to engage with Jehovah's Witnesses. You don't have to go to the memorial. You can do something. At the very least, you can be supportive of people who are giving up their time and giving up things that they'd rather be doing other things, but they've gone to do some activism. So please, at least you can be supportive of that. And if you have criticism, make it constructive. Don't come in and say, oh, that was terrible, that was awful. Give us an example of how it could be improved.
Or
perhaps,
better yet,
or go and do it yourself.
Yep, right. Go out and show us how it's done. I'd love to see that. I love that. You know why? Because that's you doing something. That's great. So yeah, show me what I'm doing wrong, and please, I'd love to learn on how to improve my own activism. So anyway, that being said, folks, like Rick already repeated, since I say this all the time, everybody probably has it memorized by now. Do something, keep it legal, and do it from the heart. These are all
good advice.
All right, everybody. You'd have a great night or a great afternoon, whichever it is, wherever you are. And I hope you enjoy life, because you should, because it is extremely rare for it. I mean, like, it's crazy that you even exist. I mean, you have a better chance of winning the lottery than existing, if that makes any sense.
It does. And that's why you should seize every opportunity to enjoy your life.
Right.
Do your activism, but also try and have a rounded life. Try and go and do things. Go and be happy.
Right.
But still do something. That is possible to have those two things. They're not mutually exclusive.
Right. Well, alrighty, folks. Take care.